let's just see what's going on here.
So I think I'll do a little bit of an intro because
You
this is
can hear me well,
start
yeah?
of a series. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. You okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, bless.
All right, sweet. So this is going to be the start of like a little series that I'm going to do every fortnight.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for joining me for my first one.
Perfect.
And today I want to dive into two things mainly. So they're just going to be themes, and if we go off piece, we go off piece. Just
Sure.
take it with the like as well. So just take it in any direction you want. I want to talk about rituals, and I want to talk about gut health. But just as a bit of an intro, so for everyone watching, me and Mum met through Tim Sheaf about a year ago now, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, a bit more than that, yeah.
And it was just, we just connected straight away. Like there's very few people that I've met that have got a very, very similar view on holistic health and nutrition as me. And when I met you, we were pretty much completely aligned on these things. So it's been really cool getting to know you and all that sort of stuff. And just a bit more background on you. So you do physical healings, mainly around cupping. You do nutrition coaching.
Yeah.
You co-wrote the Ramadan Reset Guide, which is an amazing resource. So we'll point people in the direction of where they can get hold of that at some point when we're talking about the gut stuff. But just focusing on how you can use Ramadan and the fasting involved in that to heal the guts, and focus and use it as a real time to reset and like focus on eating good foods and just resetting your body as a whole. And you also create incredible candles, bath salts, bone broths, and we'll dive into all that. We'll finish with that because we can tell people where they can get your stuff and a little bit more. And we'll get onto the bone broth, I'm sure, in the gut section.
For sure.
So have I missed anything? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you did a great job, man.
Okay.
Every time people ask me what do, I always give a different answer.
Yeah.
And it really depends on the individual I'm speaking to. But yeah, I've done a lot of stuff throughout my journey to becoming the type of practitioner that I am now.
Yep.
So yeah, it all started with food, actually. And now we work with physical therapy and coaching. But really for me, it's always began from my passion of food. So watching my mum, my dad put so much effort into their cooking and their shopping and the love they put into the preparation, the ritual of sitting together as a family and eating together. So that's where kind of my memory is. When I started developing as a practitioner, always began with food. Yeah. So I qualified as a performance sports nutritionist. In about 2015, I'd completed a 3-year physiology degree. Before that, playing a lot of sport growing up. So I've always loved food. I've always loved sport. I've always loved health. Yeah. And I think as my understanding of what it is to be human has developed, my ability to help myself has grown. Yeah. And the detail that I've put into that healing from myself has led me down the holistic path. So this is why I practice holistic integrative medicine or naturopathic or alternative medicine. And within that, just to simplify it for everybody, it's really a philosophy that keeps evolving, obviously, but it's a philosophy which is intertwined in biopsychosocial spiritual living.
It's a bit of a mouthful, that.
Yeah. So basically, in order for the human organism to function optimally, the human being has to understand the complex reality of what it means to be human. It's not simple being human. We have physical needs, emotional needs, social needs, spiritual needs. Yeah. So if you have a way to practice as a therapist or a doctor or anything like that, which ticks all those boxes, and I think it was coined in the 70s. A research, a researcher, kind of proposed that this hypothesis, this model, this biopsychosocial model. Me, being so deeply involved in spiritual faith, have kind of understood that the spirituality is important. But that's basically what I do. In many ways at the moment, and hopefully in the future, it will continue to grow. I am able to work with human beings and help them fulfill and understand and realize and feed and nourish themselves biologically, physically, or biologically, psychologically, socially, and spiritually. And again, everything that I share with my patients, that I help my patients with, is something that I've used on myself. I've tried and tested. And then I utilize it in my practice. So there's an integration between ancient spiritual art and philosophy and modern evidence-based, research-driven data, I suppose.
I think that's one of the reasons why you're so effective, is that you take a holistic viewpoint, and it's kind of in contrast to modern medicine, right? Where, the extreme view of medicine is they break human beings down like they're a machine into individual parts, and they look at one part and, right, how can we fix this part? Whereas, like you're saying, we're a holistic system, and it's not only just our parts in terms of our physical parts that work together. It's also, how does our psyche interplay? How are our emotions in there? How does the spiritual impact our physical? So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why you're so effective as a practitioner, because you can integrate all these things together.
I think the most important thing is not utilizing these things or integrating them, but actually being humble enough to accept their importance and the significance in the healing journey of my client. So I could easily, as a practitioner or as somebody who works with health optimization or performance optimization or recovery, whether we're talking about athletes or we're talking just about, entrepreneurs or high performance people, or just normal kind of people who are just getting by, right? Ultimately, I had to humble myself enough to understand how complex this all was, how intertwined everything was. It wasn't as simple and black and white as here's a symptom, here's the relief, or here's a symptom, here's the cure. And modern medicine, the allopathic system, really, drives towards either drugs or surgery. It's about it,
Yeah.
Whereas, and it's very reactive. People aren't empowered. They just live their lives, and then something happens, they have pain or they have a problem, and they go and seek the remedy, which is either it starts off with a little twinge, which you get prescribed a very small dose painkiller or medication or anti-inflammatory, and then you go back home and you feel better because there's this exchange between yourself and the physician. You've gone, you've complained, and you've received something in return, and you look at this pill or this box and think, great, this is it, this is my savior, this is going to fix me.
Yeah.
And then you go home, and then 3 months later you come back because it hasn't worked, and that little twinge has gone into a bigger problem. And then so the doctor gives you a stronger painkiller or a medication, and then you think, all right, this is going to work. Of course, yeah, he didn't give me something strong enough. So you go back, and then 6 months later you have something even more serious.
Yeah.
So you go back to the doctor and you think, what's going on, mate? I've come to see you twice now. The first things didn't work. You sort me out. So he'll be like, I know what's going to fix you up. I know just the thing. Let me pull it out, right? It's right here, right? Boom. There we go. You go home and you think this is it. The doctor made the mistake for the first time. He understands me. He still hasn't asked you about your sleep. Hasn't asked you about, your movement. Hasn't asked you about your breathing. He hasn't asked you about your relationships.
Yeah.
He hasn't asked you how you, as part of this macrocosm of the human experience, how you are affected by work and family and the environment and the television and the social media. It doesn't ask you that. It just pinpoints into whatever you tell him. So if you miss certain things out and you miss certain information out, the doctor is going to give you, a pain relief or an anti-inflammatory based on the information you give him. Anyway, what tends to happen, what I've seen over the years, is people are on this back and forth journey to their physician trying to find solutions. The physician's model is already at a deficit, because from the get-go he hasn't, the system doesn't allow for optimal healing or recovery from the root cause of the problem. They're just trying to give you a solution for the symptom. What tends to happen is 10 years down the line, that little twinge, which could have been fixed if you came to see someone like me, who would have addressed your lifestyle and delved into a deep, medical history, lifestyle questionnaire, stress, sleep recall, diet recall, movement recall, physical assessment. I would, have a look at the spine and the muscle and the breath and the diaphragm. What it says, all that in an hour.
Yeah.
What would have happened, because you didn't come to see someone like me, 10 years down the line, you're facing a really deep, and painful and risky spinal surgery or hip surgery, because the system failed you, because you didn't understand the importance of this bigger picture. Because when you went to see the physician didn't ask you where the problem came from, didn't delve deep into the issue. He just thought, okay, yeah, you've got this problem, let's give you this pill. And this is the problem we're facing in the society. People they have a small problem, and some people leave it, some people address it. And if correctly dealt and diagnosed by the right individual, the right open-minded practitioner or physician, I'm not saying all GPs are like that or all doctors like that, but the bigger perspective, then you wouldn't be facing a huge life-changing, life-risking surgery, or being, constantly on medication for 10 years. You know what I mean? And it's like your diet hasn't changed, your stress hasn't changed. So it's the system. So I was failed by that system 10 years ago, a system which I was ready to go and give my life. And I was failed because as I graduated, I went into hospital, and the next thing you know, things got really bad, and I had to start healing myself on my own. And this is where we are today. I'm helping others heal because I've realized it's complex, and this is why I've continuously educated myself, gone on courses, taken further study, reading, exploration, because I've realized shit, it's not that simple. It's more complex, and I keep growing because I humbly understand that it's not as simple as a pill for a symptom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, to be fair to your modern doctor, they're set, just as the system's set up to fail the patient in terms of they come in and, like you said, they don't assess the underlying root cause, they don't assess their holistic lifestyle factors, sleep, etc., etc. The system's also set up to fail the practitioner because they've got under 10 minutes probably to see a patient. And their only option really is, right, okay, what's the problem? And they look through a list of pills, which pill can they give them? And then there's questions around, the incentivization behind those pills, and also the textbooks, which, these doctors are learning their information from. They don't discuss nutrition. I spoke to someone not too long ago. They went through 5 years of medical school. I think they did 3 hours of nutrition study in that whole time. Now, when you look at the importance of nutrition to the human body and how that can impact health at every single level, how that isn't, a cornerstone of a modern doctor's education is crazy to me. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Of course, man. And you know what it is, like you said, the system fails the patient, it fails the practitioner. But at a certain point, every doctor, every GP, every junior doctor has to face the music, right? You know what I mean? They have to make a conscious choice whether what they're doing is right, it's morally right, it's effective or not. And what I found is there are a lot of doctors and GPs and consultants who are ignorant because they thought there was nothing more, and it was just that, and which I find very shocking, the world we live in. But there are also doctors that know, but arrogantly dismiss the importance of diet. And a great example is I had a friend last year who had a really bad bout of inflammatory bowel issues and chronic inflammation in the gut. They diagnosed it as celiac disease, and they nearly cut his bowel out. And he was on serious steroids, and it always hits home when it affects you or someone close to you. But I used to go and visit him frequently to make sure he was okay, and that they weren't going to cut his bowel out, because that was that was what was on offer for him after 2 weeks of medication that obviously was ineffective, because it's not the lack of medication that created the inflammation in the first place. But anyways, I spoke to him. He said, well, the dietitian said I can eat whatever I want, and the diet's not going to affect my gut inflammation. I thought, are you crazy? Like, this is who you're trusting with your bowel. So I said that you can listen to me and not go for the surgery, or you can listen to them and go for the surgery. And it's up to you. It's your bowel. But he didn't go for the surgery. But the point is there are many physicians out there who don't believe that nutrition is important, and that's by choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really want to get into all the politics of that, but ultimately, drugs and surgery aren't the answer. And people need to understand, especially the phase we're moving into, humanity, where we're going with all of this stuff that's happening around us. People need to understand and realize how can they naturally heal themselves, and what's on offer. But it's challenging, man. It's challenging because there's not a lot of open information out there for people, and even natural practitioners, they don't practice on a holistic level. They also only see one side of the coin. You know what I mean? So within the alternative sphere, there are people that aren't as holistic as they can be.
Yeah, I think ultimately for people, like what people in general have to realize is that you shouldn't be, or there's the option there to not outsource your health, right? You can bring your health in-house, and you can learn about this study your own body, and then you don't have to go to doctors and this sort of thing. And then everyone that goes down that path realizes that modern medicine as a system is generally failing. Like, if you've got a broken leg, sure, go see a surgeon, but for gut issues and for mental health problems and stuff like this, generally a pill isn't the answer. You're much better off taking a more holistic route and looking at, right, okay, what's the root cause of this? And
people are lazy, man.
Well, that's the point I was just about to make. Is that a pill, when you go to a doctor and you go, oh, give me a pill, they give you a pill to fix the problem. Whereas, if you go to, a meditation retreat, say, for example, for 3 weeks, it's hard work. And there's a lot of time and effort that has to go into that healing process. So, yeah, I think that's the main takeaway from that first section. It's just like, people can empower themselves with health and bring it back in-house.
They can always take control.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think people that choose not to, and they're lazy, and they just would rather go to the expert, and the expert of you should always begin, the expert is you when it comes to your body. And if something in your gut is telling you, oh, this hurts and this is not right, and you go to the doctor and he says, no, you're fine, you got to listen to your gut instinct. But I think this brings us into the next stage, right? The gut instinct and how that intelligence, right, in the gut, we are all born with this innate intelligence, this gut, this third emotional space where it's just intuitive. It's human, right? Animals have it, we have it, but it gets, it gets kind of desensitized through our childhood.
Well, yeah. I lost there for Yeah, I got you back now. Well, I was just saying that, so the gut and the brain are connected, right, by the vagus nerve. So you've got gut-brain axis.
Yeah.
Got you? gut-brain axis.
I'm here. Yeah, gut-brain axis.
So
Yeah, I got you.
you've got the gut-brain axis, and this is something that's being studied a hell of a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they've shown that around about 90% of your neurotransmitters, somewhere around there, are produced in your gut. You're talking like dopamine, serotonin. These are the neurotransmitters responsible for like pleasure, happiness, stuff like that. So the direct correlation that's been shown now between your gut health and your mental health. And as a result of that, you know, the gut microbiome is becoming like more and more talked about in the health and fitness space.
Yeah.
It's becoming extremely popular.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask you, so say someone's watching now and they're thinking, right, okay, do I have a gut problem? I'm not sure. Like, what are some major sort of signs that someone might potentially have a gut issue?
Great. I mean, we can target this in so many different ways, but you know, one way you may have a gut issue is if you stop listening to your gut feeling, or you don't ever have you never get a gut feeling about things anymore, and just things happen in life, and you're not in tune with your gut feeling. That's one thing I would always ask people to check. If you don't get a gut feeling about a situation or a person or an idea, and you just passively
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
running to the toilet so many times a day, if you can't keep food down, if you've got heartburn or indigestion, if you've got and I'm talking, if you have eczema or psoriasis, if you have brain fog or constant chronic headaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am with that right now. If you allow me, is that okay? Can I go?
Go for it, man.
Sure. Perfect.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
So the fixing your gut health isn't as simple as fixing your diet. That's something which I think novice naturopaths and nutritionists would say. If you fix your diet, you fix your gut. And I would say that's partially true. It's partially true, but not fully true. Now, if the definition of diet is just the food you eat, I would say you're completely wrong. If you say you need to change your diet, and your diet encompasses your thoughts, the people around you, the stimuli which you allow into your space, the energy that you allow into your space, the sounds, the lights, the conversations, all of these things, that's your diet, then we could say, yeah, change your diet. Because food enough doesn't fix the gut. A lot of the time, and you'll get this with people, they try loads of different diets for irritable bowel. They go anti-candida, they go keto, they go carb free, they go if it fits your macros, they try all sorts of anti-inflammatory diets, right? The SIBO diet, all of these things, and the gut is still in trouble. They buy cheap probiotics, they buy expensive probiotics, they have enemas, they have what am I qualified in? Hydrotherapy, right? I completely forgot. I haven't done it in so many ways, in so many months. But they have hydrotherapy, chronic hydrotherapy.
Yeah.
And the gut still doesn't fix. It's because the gut is so sensitive to stress.
Yeah.
Now, diet isn't the only stress which you put into your gut if you don't eat right. Your thoughts can also stress you. Your emotions stress you. People can stress you. So this is what I say to people. If you want to fix your gut, you have to look bigger and wider than just the food that you eat, right? And the food that you eat needs to be redefined as not just physical food in terms of macros or micros, right? But, energy food, ideas, thoughts, people, spaces. And this is what why I get results with people with gut health. This is why my gut is great, because you start with probiotics, doesn't work. You go to fermented foods, still doesn't work. A lot of the time people don't hang out enough. They don't wait enough for a diet or a protocol to change. But ultimately the gut microbiome is right. It relies so much on stress management. And this is why I work with mind coaching.
Yeah, and on that, just so people understand, is you've got the gut wall, and there's lining within the, which almost looks like fingers within the gut wall. And when you're in a completely relaxed state, those fingers will be, you know, tight together almost, and that they'll be operating as they should do. And when you eat food, exactly, when you eat food, and it's in a polysaccharide form, you chew it, you know, you put it into your stomach works it, you release your stomach acid, you release your bile, hydrochloric acid, all these sort of stuff. You break it down into a disaccharide and a monosaccharide, and eventually when it gets to that monosaccharide form, it's small enough to go through those gaps in your stomach. But the problem is, a lot of people are eating in a stressed out state, and when that happens, those fingers in your stomach, exactly, they branch out, and then you're getting foods going through your gut lining in a bigger form than they should do. And when that happens, that's how people develop leaky gut. That's how people develop food intolerances, because your body recognizes that as a pathogen. That's something that shouldn't be there, so it attacks it.
So yeah, leaky gut syndrome is at the root of irritable bowel or gut inflammation. You're right, and you know, and leaky gut syndrome is also at the root of autoimmune disease, whether you've got, you know, psoriasis, whether you've got much more serious problems, you know, like thyroid issues and vitiligo, etc. Right? So yeah, you break down food, you don't chew it properly, you know, but it's, I don't like to get too deep into the biochemistry of it, but ultimately the gut leaks because of stress, right? And because of inflammatory living, right? Inflammatory thoughts, inflammatory people, inflammatory food, alcohol, refined sugars, you know, refined flours. And I'll give you a great example, right? The health industry absolutely hates on gluten. Everything. Gluten is like, oh, it's this evil thing. And I look back and I think, well, my ancestors ate gluten and they were fine. They were happy. You know what I mean? They were great. So what, you know, there are certain civilizations that consume gluten and they're okay. So why is gluten getting all the hate? And it's because when there is inflammation, like you said, and you know, your tight junctions, integrated in a healthy manner in your gut lining, right? You know, even if the gluten is to come through and digest it, it could still cause a problem if gluten was the problem.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so whether the tight junctions are open or not open, you can't blame gluten. It's your state that's the problem, not the gluten. If you fix your gut, the gluten doesn't cause you an issue. So I think, again, even the health industry, the alternative health industry, you know, massively affects, you know, what plays on people's ignorance, and people go gluten-free and they go, you know, most gluten-free products are refined. They're not even natural.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We go back again, refined foods cause inflammation. So if you're eating a refined gluten-free food to help your inflammation, hang on a second, shouldn't that be causing inflammation too?
Yeah.
So yeah.
One of the prime examples that I see of that, or two examples, really good examples of people eating in a stressed out state, is people watching TV when they eat. You're watching TV and you're watching the football, or you're watching an action movie or something. You know, we're mirroring that. That's why, you know, films are so absorbing, because like when you're watching that film, you feel like you're in that film. But you don't want to be in the middle of a car chase when you're eating your food, because, like you said, your tight junctions aren't going to be tight, and that's how you can potentially get leaky gut problems. And then a sort of health industry specific example is personal trainers, right? Personal trainers at the gym stack client after client after client after client for 10 hours every day, and you see a personal trainer eat their lunch, they just dislocate their jaw and just pour it down and consume in rice and broccoli in about 4 seconds.
Yeah, if they're not having protein shakes.
Yeah.
No, but so we're getting some questions, and I want to tap into this as well as a practitioner, because what I want to provide here in this conversation isn't information that you can find on the internet, because everything what I might touch on, you know, if I give the bog standard answer, you'll find on the internet. What I want to offer is not knowledge, but wisdom. I want to offer insight. So this is my practice. I'm not bothered about how much I know. I'm bothered about how much I'm utilizing what I know. Do you understand? So people have asked, how do I fix my gut? Is it juice fasting, juice detox? Is it coffee enemas? People are asking the wrong questions. People need to ask, what is wrong with me? Where is my life at? Where was my life before? Where am I going? And where am I at now? Don't ask, how can I fix my gut? Because what you're going to be looking for is you're going to try and find or entertain an idea or a product which you're going to attach to, which you feel may fix your gut. And the problem we have today is there's so much information and data. There's so many people that are saying juice fasting helps gut inflammation, enemas help gut inflammation, probiotics help gut inflammation, going keto helps gut inflammation. And the question is, this is why people like me and you exist. This is why we've gone through so many years of study and practice and refinement to get to the level of understanding and coaching that we're at now. Because you can't, as just a layman, just go and start taking information from the internet and apply it and expect it to work in a week, when you've got 25 years of inflammatory living to fix. You know what I mean? So people, if you want to know how to fix your gut, you have to speak to a professional. You have to analyze your life and look at what stressful stimuli are coming into your physiology, into your psychology, and into your spirituality. That's how you can start to fix your gut. And once you start answering these questions, you start to realize that it's not a lack of a product or a supplement or a one thing that is causing your gut inflammation. It's a host of different stressful stimuli that are causing that. And it takes somebody like me, if you come and sit with me, to see and clock in a very short amount of time, because I'm looking for these patterns, because I have the wisdom to understand. I don't gravitate towards any protocol. I gravitate towards what can help the individual that's in front of me. And the individual that's in front of me is different to everybody else that comes, because everyone is unique. Your gut is unique. The flora in your gut is unique. You know, and that's why getting a probiotic off the shelf isn't going to fix that. Because it's not that simple. So if you want to fix your gut, speak to a holistic physician. And then I would say speak to multiple holistic physicians and see which one of them is genuinely trying to help you and which one is just chatting shit. Because a lot of holistic physicians are very close-minded and operate on a textbook basis. Right? You come with candida, let's put you on a candida diet. Nah, mate, that ain't going to work. Do you know what I mean? So, on that basis,
point, like when you speak to people, like you said, everyone's as different on the inside as they are on the outside.
Everyone.
And when you start dealing with someone, you need to look, like you said, you need to start working through these steps. And when you're dealing with someone as well, it's like, it's not just they're not just going to get a pill or a straight up solution for whatever the problem is. It's you need to take an elimination approach, like you said, and a holistic approach. So you look at how are they managing their stress, how are they managing their sleep, what's their diet like. You're looking at all these different things. So yeah, it's very complicated.
Someone hibiscus. Respect hibiscus. Respect. My candles are good. Trust me.
We've made it clear that dealing with something like this is a much more complicated issue, and that people need to on an individual level. But if we were to give out general advice in terms of, right, okay, so if someone's got a gut issue, they can potentially not afford to go see a practitioner at this stage, so they want to start working through this in terms of like an elimination for themselves. What are some sort of like first steps that you try? So what is a suggestion for how can someone start managing their stress? What's something they can do in terms of their nutrition?
Start with the most important nutrient that the human organism needs on a daily basis, which is oxygen. Right. Find me a better answer. I'm looking. Right. I cannot patent that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't patent breath. It all starts with the breath, because if there's no breath, there's no life. So it's taken me 29 years of study to figure that out. Do you know what I mean? It all starts with the breath, aligning yourself with the right type of breathing mechanism. Now, most people today, if there's 25 people on right now, how many of you in your 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, have you been taught how to actually take a real breath and utilize that and empower yourself with that breath? Not many. That's why we have a society of chronically stressed people. Because I don't remember being taught a breathing meditation module when I was 6 or 12 or 18. I had to figure it out. You know what I mean? So the most important thing is oxygen and the utilization of that oxygen and the recycling of that oxygen. And it obviously starts with the breath. Now, guess what? The breathing machinery which we have in our body is right near the gut. Again, there's your answer. If you're not breathing properly, it's going to affect your gut on a physical level, but also on a chemical level, right? So the breath, and then the thought, right? Your thoughts. What are you thinking? What are you allowing into your head?
Let's stop there because we just got a question. So breath, for example, so let's break down the breath, man. So like,
yeah, cool.
People, so from my perspective, when you live in a heavily stressful life, you tend to find that people just chest breathe. So breathing shallow, and they're not getting the breath all the way down into their stomach, into their back, and they're not breathing in like a healthy wave pattern. Is that just to someone, you just coach them how to be able to breathe properly in this wave, breathe into the belly?
Activate, like you said. Most people are kind of going through life hyperventilating on a very acute level. They are mouth breathing at best. They are not using the nasal cavity to bring in oxygen into the body, into the lungs. They are breathing shallow. They are not utilizing the deeper lobes of the lung because they're not utilizing their diaphragm. A lot of the time, this is why you get so many people with anxiety and irritable bowel and chronic gut inflammation, which a lot of it has nothing to do with their diet. It's got to do with their emotional state. And that emotional state is also affected by the lack of oxygen. Because, you know, if we break down stress, what is stress? It is a response to a stimulation, an external stimuli, right? So when you're walking down the road and a car's whizzing past you, your adrenal glands in the kidneys release cortisol and adrenaline, and you're like, okay, I'm going to save my life. It's a split second kind of phenomena, right? And that's great in a split second when you're stressed and your glands, you know, your adrenal glands secreting those hormones to save your life. Most people, the lack of breath or the lack of oxygenation and the lack of activation of their diaphragm is eliciting the same response as if the lion is in a room or the bear is in a room on an acute level, because they're not using their diaphragm and their brain is going, hang on a second, this guy's in trouble because he's not breathing. You're breathing, you're alive, but the body doesn't recognize a real breath because you're not using the diaphragm, you're not using your nose. You're not fully inhaling and exhaling and then breathing, you know, having breath holds and being conscious of present. Again, the most important thing of the breath is realizing that you need to take the breath. Now, in the Most High's wisdom, you know, he's given us this parasympathetic breathing apparatus where we don't have to think about breathing. We just breathe. And that's the problem. People just breathe. But if you start to practice the breath and bring the presence into it and the conscious awareness on the breath today, right, you automatically stop stress. Because when you bring the presence in and you're conscious and aware of the breath, you realize that you're not breathing properly.
Yeah.
You realize that you're going wrong.
One of the major problems, right? So you've got anxiety, depression in modern society, and it stems from living in the future or living in the past, right? So what's not there? It's living in the present moment, in the now. And the breath is an amazing way to anchor you into the now. So if you're focused on your breath, you are in this present moment, and you're not worrying about that thing, or, you know, thinking about that thing that happened in the past. None of that's happening. And what the breath allows you to do is bring the unconscious into the conscious. And the iceberg analogy is great, where you've got like an image of an iceberg which is sitting on top of the water, and 90% of that iceberg is under the water. That's what our autonomic nervous system's like. 90% of the things we do throughout the day are on autopilot at the end of the water. Well, the breath allows us to bring more and more of that iceberg above the water. So all of a sudden, we're more conscious of the decisions we're making.
For the moment. Now, if you practice this day in, day out, then the iceberg will start to shift. And because, you know, the ignorance is a byproduct of just living without being present. It's constantly thinking about yesterday and tomorrow, which is, like you said, anxiety or fear, which elicit a physiological response, which makes you breathe even worse. It makes you hyperventilate. It's a nasty circle. So, you know, the breath, you know, if I could use some words just to really emphasize breath, I would say nasal and diaphragmatic. I would say conscious and present. And then I would say repetition, because, you know, you might feel better in the moment when you're practicing breath work, but then guess what? The autopilot kicks in again after the meditation or after this 5 minutes. Conscious breath work meditation in your life. And this doesn't have to be going to a retreat or going online. It's just bringing yourself into the present moment as often as you can throughout the day, day in, day out. Once you repeat that, the unconscious breath, which was predominantly mouth and stress based, becomes a unconscious kind of relaxed and optimal breath. So you can fix your breathing mechanics and become a nasal breather, not a stress response breather, by practicing over and over and over again. It takes years to do this stuff. Do you know what I mean?
And that's the thing. It's like, you know, a lot of people will try this and maybe, right, I'm going to do some breath work for a week or so. But you've got to look at this like you're going to the gym, right? You can't go to the gym for a week and expect to be, you know, the next Conor McGregor, or, you know, have put on 10 kilos of muscle mass. It's just not going to happen. You've got to consistently practice this for months and years, and you're going to be better and better at it. And by anchoring yourself into the moment with breath work, whether it's practice in the morning, a couple of minutes throughout the day, 10 minutes in the evening, suddenly you're going to be able to get, you're not only going to get better and better at the breath work, but you're going to be better and better at being in the moment. And that's a problem with today, like modern society, especially when people are working. You've got so much distractions with your phone being on, you know, notifications popping up for text messages or social media or whatever, email, someone walking past. People can't concentrate anymore. You really struggle. Like a lot of people struggle to sit down and read a book. And stuff's going to not only enable you to help manage your stress, but it's also going to help you be able to be in the present moment and focus on one task at a time. And you're going to become so much more efficient. So you know, it's just so multifaceted in terms of the benefits you can get from this.
The breath affects everything. I think every patient that I work with now, most of the time I will teach them how to breathe correctly. Most people think they're breathing right and they're not. And one thing I just want to say before we move on, you know, there are so many breathwork meditation classes, breathwork lives, breathwork, you know, tutorials online, and just, you know, guided breathworks, all of these things for people who obviously are looking to fix their stress or their inflammation, hence why they're there in the first place. You know what I mean? The majority. What I find is a lot of these kind of practitioners or people who are teaching or going through these guided breathwork meditations are not actually teaching the individual the correct breathing mechanics. So what tends to happen is people who are chronically stressed and anxious because of the inability to control their breathing apparatus go onto these breathwork classes to fix the stress and make the stress worse. You know, take care. Assalamu alaikum. They make the stress worse. Why? Because they are, because they're perpetuating the lack of correct breathing technique, thinking that they're breathing better. So I know so many people that have gone on breathwork meditation classes. Yeah, they get worse. So I always teach my clients, and you know, and I'm going to do this because loads of people keep asking me, but literally, a proper breath looks like. I think should we do that? What does it look like to breathe properly? That means I've got to take my top off, mate. It's all right. I love taking my top off on camera. Eh? Okay.
I said, come on, let's get this done. You got some fans, Mo.
All right. So. All right. Can you so. All right.
This wasn't
okay.
viral.
This wasn't. Okay. So, as you can see, I'm in great shape. I'm lean. I'm not training. I'm not controlling. You know, I'm not on a diet. I'm just living. So, the diaphragm. The diaphragm. The beautiful diaphragm. Okay.
So talk me through what you're doing here. You're focusing on getting the breath into your stomach.
So yeah.
Bed.
Here.
Yeah.
Straight into here.
Yeah.
Hey. All right. So, can you see? Basically, everybody put their hand on the chest, put their hand on the tummy. Right? A breath, when it begins, and through its motion, should be predominantly belly-based, diaphragmatic-based.
Yeah.
So, just one way to check yourself when you're breathing is what moves first, my chest or my belly.
Yeah.
If your chest is moving first, you're breathing wrong. So when I take a breath through my nose, through my throat chakra, I'm going straight into the diaphragm. So I'm going. Now you can control the breath and compartmentalize it into different ways and how to play with it. But ultimately, from the nose, straight into the tummy, all right? I'm expanding here.
Mm-hmm.
My chest isn't moving. I'm so relaxed. Now my chest is starting to expand. Now I can start to have that spinal or thoracic extension, and I'm going. Now all of this is starting to fill up, but I've filled up a lot here. You know what I mean?
So would you say around 2/3 belly, 1/3 breath, chest?
Yeah, I would say like 70% belly before you start activating and engaging your thoracic cavity and your heart, the upper lobes of the lung. So you really got to be like, it's like a wave, right? So I'm here, right? All right. So and this is depression, this is anxiety, this is fear. You're here, right? It's a physical expression. I'm scared, I'm afraid, I'm worried, right? But presence and confidence or arrogance and ego is here. You know what I mean? So when you're here, physically, you're also here emotionally because you get a compression of the diaphragm. Now, the diaphragm, you start to develop knots and tightnesses in here. It doesn't move because it's a very important muscle because of your posture. This is why, with the work that I do, I work on postural correction, breath work, mind coaching, because it all ties in. Do you understand? If you're afraid and scared, you're going to be in this position day in, day out, emotionally, physically. So if we want to open up your life and your life potential, we need to start with expansion of your breath by first releasing the diaphragm, by actually breathing properly. But this is why I do a lot of myofascial release and work on the gut and the diaphragm with massage and stuff, because it's all this, it's all that. Right? So this is the breath.
You've gone through one breath, right? So we've got one breath, talking 2/3 belly, 1/3 chest. It comes up in a wave motion. Now, if someone wants to practice their breath work in a more of a routine, right? I'm going to put 10 minutes aside a day to do some breath work practice.
Yeah.
What is a good routine that they can go through, like box breathing? Anything have you got any go-to practices?
Yeah, I was just talking about that with Angus yesterday from Lift, and he was talking about the 6-6-6, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 6 seconds breathe in, 6 seconds breathe out, 6 seconds hold. Repeat for 10 minutes. Now, what you'll find is at the start of that breathing, you'll find you're rigid and tense and you're not breathing properly. You know, you might be chest breathing a lot and the belly's not quite released and loosened. But by the end of that 666, if you're really kind of in a presence and you start to relax and release your emotions and let go of everything, you'll find that the breath starts to predominantly transition more into a belly breathing, more into the diaphragmatic activation.
Yeah.
And you start to get more of a flow from the tummy up into the chest and back down.
Yeah.
And the breath hold is very important for that. So somewhere very safe to start is 6 seconds, 6 seconds, 6 seconds.
Yeah. And I think for people, anyone that's going to try it as well, it's like you can get into a bit of a rhythm with that. You almost don't want to, because you want to stay present with the breath.
Yeah.
Like you said, the hold of the breath is so important, because that's a real point where you can watch the pause in between breaths.
Yeah.
And just if you ever go off, you know, you're breathing, you get into a rhythm with it, you stop focusing on your breath, you start thinking about, you know, what's for dinner later or something else. The important practice is just to bring yourself back when you realize to focusing on your breath. And also, don't beat yourself up for going off track. You know, that's natural, that's human nature. Just bring yourself on, going.
I'm just going to put my hands up here. Yeah, I'm a human being, I'm not a machine. So I'm not perfect. I'm striving, and I'm conscious and constantly bringing myself into the present moment. When I go out the present and I'm thinking about the past to the future, I bring myself back. This is why, as part of my faith and my spiritual practice, I stop 5 times a day to meditate, and I integrate my breath with that. You know what I mean? So every day, 5 times a day, if I am conscious and giving that spiritual practice respect, I will get incredible physiological healing, because I'm zoning into my breath. I'm completely relaxed. I'm meditating, and at the end of that meditation, I know whether it was good or not. Because of how well my breath was controlled, because of how present I was. So breathing, and I can't believe this turned into a breathing masterclass, but you know, I don't call myself a breathing expert. I don't like this whole expert situation in the industry anyway. Nobody's an expert. You know what I mean? Expertise belongs to the Most High. Expertise belongs to nature, because nature is so perfect.
I think we've lost Mo. Give it a sec. Sorry about that, guys. I'll try and add Mo back in now. And yeah, I'm going to save this live, and I'm also going to add it to my YouTube. So 8 Nutrition on YouTube. I'll put the whole show up on there. Just adding Mo back in now. You there,
Can you hear
bro?
me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
I'm
you
here.
back.
This is the beauty of being married. There's always a second phone around the corner if your battery dies.
Oh, that happened to me last time. So yeah, your turn.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we've covered the breath in depth.
Move on.
So someone, right? Okay, they're saying they've got a gut issue. They're thinking, right, I'm going to deal with my stress. They've decided to implement a breathwork practice. They're doing all the stuff we just talked about, and they go, right, okay, I want to start looking at my diet. What are the cornerstone things you can do in terms of diet? How about let's look at what are the type of diets you can do that tend to be good for helping people heal the gut, and then what are some foods that are good to heal the gut?
I think we're living in a system where we're constantly consuming. So the consumption, the constant consumption of stuff is making us sick. Whether it's ideas or images or people, or overconsumption of food. Now, overconsumption of inflammatory foods is really bad. So people, again, it's all about simplifying things. The best diet is the diet where you're not eating anything and you're allowing your gut to fully relax and rest.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember you put out a post recently talking about eating too late before you sleep and how that, you know, impacts, you know, your gut, right? And the inflammatory response that is elicited as a result of eating too late. Because you just, you know, people should go on that post and study it, but I'm not going to repeat that. But fasting is for me is the best way to heal your gut, because what you're doing is you're not consuming anything. So it doesn't matter how optimal that food is, how pure and clean and organic and plant-based and vegan it is. If you don't consume it, your gut doesn't have to digest it. And if your gut doesn't have to digest it, it's resting. And if it's resting, it's recovering. So, you know, if you look at your diet as two phases, a phase of consumption and a feeding phase and a fasting phase. The more you fast, the more your diet has the potential to heal. You have human growth hormone, you know, is secreted, which helps repair gut cells, etc. All of these you know, stress reduces on the tissues. You're more able to take the energy which you were using to break food down to actually rebuild your gut wall, which you're talking about, those tight junctions, right? And again, people forget that the immune system, the majority of the immune system is situated in the gut. You've got the gullet and the malt, right? The mucosal lymph-associated tissue and the gastric, I think it's the gastric lymph-associated tissue. And there's this deep immunity in your gut. So when you fast, you upregulate your immune system because you're allowing the immune system to function and heal, right? So the fasting is fasting. You don't eat. Now, simple. We do that in Ramadan, you know, for 30 days where we do a dry fast. You can do a water fast, but the dry fast is far more superior. And then the feeding phase is where it gets interesting, because the feeding phase is where the industry is capitalizing on people's ignorance, because people don't know what to do. It's like, what do I eat?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 3 meals, 1 meal, 5 meals. Do I go vegan? Do I go paleo? You know what I mean? And again, none of these are wrong or right or optimal. A lot of them are better than others.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, if you're not fasting or incorporating fasting in your life, your gut will never heal. Because if you're constantly consuming, there is no time for growth and rebuilding, right? So when you are eating, you know, for me, you know, some of the best foods are fat and protein-based foods. Because that's what the body needs to secrete hormones and to generate hormones which fuel our endocrinology, and protein, which builds, which is part, you know, of this physical structures that make our hair, our skin, our gut lining.
Yep.
Right? Carbohydrates are not that important. Do you know what I mean? So that's why the ketogenic approach, I think it's fantastic, because it, you know, it helps the gut heal in so many different ways without going into the kind of the psychophysiology of it.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I love bone broth.
Yeah. And on that point, I think, you know, like a paleo keto approach is a really good one for people if they're, you know, worried about their, you know, their gut health, and if you're systematically fasting or periodically fasting with that as well, really help. But one of the points I always make is about doing keto intelligently. So I think a lot of people do keto in a very sort of processed way.
100%.
Adding into the diet. And when we're talking about the gut microbiome, if you're eating, you know, okay, so you don't eat a huge amount of vegetables on a ketogenic diet, you know, you tend to eat around 50 grams of carbs. I speak to people that train, and with people that train, I recommend they probably consume an extra 50 grams of carbs on top of that, but it's still not a lot, 100 grams per day. And you want to be getting all of those in the form of, you know, nutrient dense vegetables.
Yeah.
When we're eating vegetables that aren't organic, well, what happens when you've got, you know, monocropped vegetables, or, you know,
pesticides,
dynamically farmed vegetables? They're sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. What are these chemicals meant to do? They're meant to kill insects, weeds. What do you think that's going to do to your gut microbiome when you?
Absolutely annihilate it day in, day out. And again, sorry for all those people who are on a plant-based diet. I'm going to refrain from using the V word. I think it's very, I don't want to use the V word again. But imagine going on a completely plant-based, fruit and vegetable-based diet with some nuts and seeds, and these foods being, you know, non-organic, non-biodynamic, being genetically modified. They're coming from a packaged supermarket, you know, from a supermarket packaged, right? And it's like you're eating inflammation. All right, it looks colorful. You're eating the rainbow, but you're eating inflammation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's no, and again, there's a lot of people that will think, oh yeah, but fruits are good and vegetables are good and they're important. I would say they're bloody important, especially when consumed in the right season and grown, you know, and consumed within kind of the ecosystem where naturally, right? Yeah. Not being grown in this artificial laboratory and then calling it tomato. I think that should be against the law. Yeah. You can't genetically modify something which came from nature, from the Most High, and then still call it a tomato when it clearly isn't a tomato. Yeah. If people look at it and think, well, this is a tomato, I'm vegan, so I'm going to eat this. I see so many malnourished vegans out there. I see so many malnourished plant-based eaters out there. I see so many malnourished people that think I shouldn't be malnourished because I'm eating all these fruits and vegetables. And the secret is in the quality. And again, the secret is in the stress. You can be vegan all you want. You can eat this optimal clean diet all you want. If you're not breathing properly and you're stressed out because of your environment, then all the vegetables in the world ain't going to fix you, even if they are biodynamic and organic.
Yeah, well, it's the same point with meat, isn't it? It's like,
yeah, it's the same with meat.
Meat or plants or both, it's all about quality. If you're eating, you know, processed, monocrop, factory farmed, that's you know, it's going to destroy you. Because I made this point earlier to someone about protein. It's like food contains energy and information. Now, you eat a steak from a factory farmed animal, you eat a steak from a grass-fed animal, they're going to have the same amount of protein, which is the energy, but the information is going to be completely different. The level of omega-3 to omega-6 is going to be completely different. And those micronutrients, that information is what you create your hormones out of, what you create your neurotransmitters out of, what you're rebuilding, you know, your gut from, what you're your tendons, your ligaments, all these things. So there's just so much more to it than the if it fits your macros approach.
But this is why, like you're talking about, you know, the digestive process and the energy. You know, food is consumed and, you know, predominantly through the mouth, through the oral cavity. Digestion or your gastrointestinal tract begins in your mouth. There's a biome and a flora and in your mouth, right? So if you're not chewing your food properly because you're watching the television, then you create these macro particles that create inflammation in the gut. And if you are present and breathing correctly and breaking that food down and chewing it properly, you know, that will have an effect on your gut differently. And I think what people have to understand is no matter what diet you're on, no matter how good the meat is, are you chewing it properly? Are you taking time to give thanks and have gratitude for your provision right before you? Humble yourself and then chew your food. Make that intention for that food to nourish your cells. And when you start to make intentions and start to connect with the food as you're eating it, because you're not distracted by the television or your phone or your people around you, what tends to happen is that food will be less likely a cause of inflammation for your gut, because you're giving it respect, you're connecting with it, you're giving thanks for it, you're chewing it properly. That in itself is a way to optimize or reduce gut inflammation. There's so many people that have a great diet, but they don't chew their food, they chomp it down, they have irritable bowel. So these small details like chewing your food and sourcing your food properly, and this is why if you go back to the quality and the presence of your rituals, right, through the food consumption process, your diet doesn't start with when you eat it. It starts from when you buy it.
Yeah.
That's your diet. Yeah. So if you're shopping in the wrong places and buying the wrong quality of produce, then your diet is screwed, no matter how good it looks on paper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is why we see these PTs and you see a lot of these nutritionists, they just get you know, work with a kind of a program or some sort of formatting tool where they just list all these foods and they do a breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack one, snack two. And on paper, it looks like all these foods contain all these nutrients and minerals, but they're failing to educate the client about the quality. They're failing to educate the client about the stress. They're failing to educate the client about the intention, right? And the presence. And again, this is the wisdoms and information which you're not going to really find in a textbook, you know, and it's not something I've figured out myself. It's been passed down through generations of very smart people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've just managed, I've humbly tapped into that information, and looked bigger than the data, bigger than the micro and the macro, and more in the energy, like you said, the energy of your home,
Mm-hmm.
the money by which you bought that food. What was the energy of that money?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where did you earn that money before you bought that grass-fed Angus? You know what I mean? Did you cheat that, or did you graft for that money? Things like that. All of these things, you know, they eventually play a role in how that energy, like you said, that's a beautiful word, you know, that manifests in your body, and whether it either directs you towards closer towards a state of health or closer towards disease, because disease and health is just a spectrum. We're always going back and forth from health and disease. Yeah. And so I would go to say that, without going into the debate of meat and vegetables and things like that, quality is king. Presence is king. Intention will change everything, you know. But interesting.
So on that, we've covered managing your stress and breath work. We've covered what type of diets work good for gut health. Let's dive in on some of the foods. So specific foods for
Yeah. You know, but like I said, for me, I make bone broth. I have a bone broth. I sell it. I started selling it because I found that it would benefit people massively.
Yeah.
So bone broth is basically a pressure cooking, you know, animal bone, tendons, cartilage, ligaments, animal tissue, living tissue, consciously sourced animal tissue. As Muslims, we have halal. You know, halal is a way where you should, you know, if done correctly, there is no stress in the killing process of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that taps into the energy. So if I'm consciously sourcing meat, right, and I am using the bones, and, you know, I use Angus cow, I use Angus, you know, I use cow foot, cow shin, I use lamb shoulder, I use fish carcass. It depends. But ultimately, you're taking a living tissue which was consciously and sacredly killed to give you life, right? Part of this natural cycle, you know, ecosystem of life, where everything is taking and everything is giving back, and you're cooking that animal carcass under pressure, and you add some plant-based anti-inflammatory ingredients to it, like ginger, like garlic, like turmeric, you know, some aniseed and fennel, these things, and ultimately you're creating a concoction where you are drawing and sucking out minerals and proteins and amino acids and collagen and gelatin, all these things which build your hair and skin and your gut lining, right, from this animal, which was sacrificed in a conscious and sincere manner and in a sacred ritual to give you and your family strength. So that bone broth, when I make bone broth, I consciously source my meat. Then I'm present in the bone broth making process. I meditate and I give thanks for that. Then I put it under the pressure cooker and I let that work its magic.
Yeah.
What happens is the pressure cooker does the work for me. When I consume that bone broth, my gut doesn't have to work hard. I don't even have to chew.
Yeah. That's what I tell people all the time. When you get PTs that they can't chew their food, I say, mince, eat something that's pre-chewed, you know?
Pre-chewed. I just, you know, I sip, but then you sip it. You don't just, you know what I mean? Even in that, you think, oh, I don't have to chew. Cool, I'm just going to gulp the soup down. No. Bone broth can be consumed as just a pure liquid, how I sell it. You can consume bone broth with actual physical, you know, vegetables and meat in it as well. You know what I mean? It can be, you know, a base for a ramen, for example, with noodles, you know, healthy noodles and meat and chicken and fish. It could just be a soup. It could be something you drink lukewarm. It can be incorporated in many ways, but some of the best foods for the gut, I would say, is bone broth, because and holistically kind of sourced and concocted bone broth, not just any bone broth. You can, and it's not my bone broth. You can prepare it at home. You just need to know how to do it. I would say black seed oil is fantastic for the gut and general immunity. What else would I say is great for the gut? Fermented foods.
Yeah,
You know,
kimchi,
natural
sauerkraut.
probiotics. You
Yeah,
know, I make kefir, raw kefir from raw dairy.
yeah.
You know, kimchi, sauerkraut.
Kombucha,
Again, pardon?
kombucha.
Kombucha. I love kombucha. You know, I would stay away from things like tempeh and some other soy fermented
Yeah,
products,
agree.
because a lot of the soy is farmed and kind of genetically modified and stuff like that. But yeah, just fermented foods. The beautiful thing about fermented foods is it's a natural probiotic. The ancients didn't have probiotics in a pill, nice package sold for lots of money. They fermented their foods. Why? A, because they were preserving the food, because they didn't have, you know, technology to refrigerate and freeze and things like that. Some indigenous people did because of where they lived, but most people in the Middle East, in Europe, in the Mediterranean, right? They fermented their foods. They fermented and pickled all sorts of food, meat, fish, everything, because A, it was a preservation technique, but B, it was a technique which introduced healthy microorganisms, or kind of perpetuated the microorganisms and the colonies from within the food itself.
And they knew to do this intuitively through experimenting with food, through eating food, checking in with their body. Whereas, and
They,
it's
they
one of
were
the,
connected, man,
yeah, exactly.
because you see, they had to figure it out, because they couldn't just go to the shop and buy it. You know, the crop would come. They had a short amount of time to save that food, or else it would rot. So, in order to preserve their legacy and their family, they started fermenting food.
Yeah.
Right? They started, and then when they started doing that, I don't know when that started, somewhere in the timeline of man. You know, when they started fermenting the food, they realized it was actually doing good.
Yeah.
And there are so many people throughout the world. If you look at the Middle East, if you look at, you know, Eastern Europe, where they you know, the populations generally live better, they lived longer. You know, and there's research to show there's a lot of these populations work because of the consumption of fermented foods such as kefir.
Yeah. Right, Mo, that was powerful, mate. Really
Yeah.
powerful. So I want to wrap it up with a quick summary of what we've covered.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to hand over to you to tell people about your products and
Dope.
where people can find you, okay?
Dope.
So we didn't get onto rituals. We'll have to come back and do that another time. But we
Mhm.
covered gut microbiome deep.
Mhm.
And the three major points you can take away from gut microbiome is more than just the food you're eating. It's about managing your stress. One of the major ways to manage your stress is through breath. You can watch this back to see Mo's example of how to breathe and some techniques for breathing techniques and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
The best foods is basically eating like a paleo, more paleo approach where you're cutting out processed foods and things like that.
Mhm.
And then specific foods that can help you are bone broth, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, kefir. I think that's everything we covered. So, right,
100%.
you let people know where they can find you and what your products are.
Cool. So the easiest way is to go on my website, which is www.bouaziz.co. Everything's on there. My products, my story, my services. I practice out of a clinic in Hertfordshire. I also do a lot of remote coaching, where I kind of take people through different forms of healing techniques like the breath and, you know, nutritional management, things like that, working on mental health through distance. But I also do home visits and I work with therapy. So, you know, my job is to channel and change and transform energy, right? And this isn't some like spiritual kind of monk stuff, right? I'm talking about real energy which is physiological. I'm not talking about the spiritual. So I use coaching, physical therapy, cupping, you know, breathwork meditation, my products, my aromatherapy candles, my bone broth, all of these things to change the energy within your being, within your organism. And I always tell people, before you buy my products, before you go and just support, you know, what is the intention behind buying my products? Are you just trying to support me? Do you like them? Are you buying my products because my products look good? Or are you buying my products for a purpose? Now, if you know what that purpose is and you're informed and you understand who you are, what your life purpose and your journey is and the needs of your body and your mind and your spirit, then go ahead and buy my products. But I always tell people, come at me save yourself some money and some time, message me and ask me how I can help them, whether it's through my services or through my products. Because I don't want people buying my products for the sake of buying them. I want my people to buy my products and to change and transform their energy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm here. Drop me a DM on Instagram. Message me via my email. Check out your stuff. You're doing great, man. I love your brand. I love your products.
Thanks.
I love keto fuels. You know what I mean? I am one of the #1 supporters of 8, and I
yeah.
And I love you so much. I'm ready to go topless on Instagram Live. I never did.
Mate, let's pull it back a sec. If people do want to buy your products, what's your website?
www.buaziz.co.
And they can get the candles there?
They can get candles there. Yeah, they can get candles. Or they can go on buazizcandles.com.
Okay.
But if they go on buaziz.co, they'll find everything and they'll take them to the candles website as well.
Okay, amazing. And I can personally vouch, the candles are unbelievable. I didn't know anything about candles before meeting you. Yours are all made with soy and essential oils, whereas most other candles are made with paraffin and toxic chemicals and this, that, and the
Always a candle on in my space.
Yeah. And I've got one of yours on upstairs right now.
Trust me.
And the bone broth is unbelievable. Like, I've been trying to recreate it here for months and I can't get anywhere close. Your bone broth tastes incredible. And yeah, there's all the goodness in the sourcing of the raw materials going in there, like second to none. So I couldn't.
And I make intention in my products. From the moment I source and supply the goods and the moment of actually creating them, there is an intention to heal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think people, when they get into my products, they'll realize the amount of attention and to detail that I put into them, and actually how they are helping transform people that I know. So there's only one way to find out.
Cool. Right. So on that note, let's finish. Save this live to my profile, and I'm also going to put it on the 8 Nutrition YouTube page. So give us a follow over there. Thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we'll run it back again soon, mate, and we'll cover the rituals element. Okay?
Thank you so much, bro. Thanks for having me on, man.
Join me.
Stay blessed. Take care.